What's up, Internet? It's Riley from No Fun. Welcome to my studio. I'm a designer and maker here in Toronto. Let's see where we left off in the last video I made about my studio and the building that it's in. We all got evicted. Okay, I think that's it. But that wasn't it. Y'all had questions. To make a long story short, the building we're in for decades had become a haven for artists in Toronto, truly one of the last affordable places to rent studio and workshop space in the city. The new developers wanted all of us removed as soon as possible so they could expedite their condo building plan. Having all of our leases cut short at the same time left dozens of us scrambling to find somewhere to go. If you see the green line on the floor, that's the mark I just laid down to show the size of the new space we're moving into. It's gonna be a tight squeeze and a hectic move, but I think we can make it work. So this is a video about trying to make it work in a building that just so happens to be right across the street. We're going to be building out a brand new studio space quite literally from the ground up, so let me take you along for the ride. We had a hard drive fail, but I'm going to piece this together for you the best that I can. If you're wondering why they want to put a condo here so badly, I'm pretty sure it's because of the view of this big tower. This is all happening in late 2021 at the peak of the pandemic and lockdowns. This building across the street had been sitting mostly vacant with only 1 or 2 tenants left. One of our studio neighbors, who'd also been displaced and needed somewhere to move, decided to rent the entire building. To this day, I have no idea what he was thinking or how they made that work financially. I'd visited this building once before, a few months prior, when all these plans were still dreams and drawings on napkins. At that point in time, the building was still super raw, it didn't look like it would work out for No Fun, and at the time I wasn't interested at all because of the prices they were asking. Now that my lease had been officially terminated and I was quickly being backed into a corner, I went by again to see what they were up to. At this stage, I'd been looking elsewhere in the city for a suitable, and by that I mean affordable, space to move into for nearly a year and a half, before the pandemic even hit. The rental market and housing crisis in Toronto is absolutely out of hand just generally, and during the lockdowns it became even harder to find a space that I could afford. We toured through so many truly dismal spots. Some of the asking prices on spaces that were in even this condition are through the roof. Even with the news of the displacements happening at our building making national headlines, no real new opportunities or openings presented themselves to us. This extended search for a space became a full-time job that really burnt me out. I'm not a realtor. Even the broker we were working with was having trouble finding anywhere in the city for us to go. I was becoming more and more stressed and more desperate day by day. Watching this back, I can see how pessimistic I'm feeling about the space while I'm walking through for the second time. But the floor plans have made their way off of the napkins and into official blueprints. I know that the construction here has to finish on my timeline because the people doing the construction need to move in there too, so I reluctantly signed my life away on a new lease. Since this new space was going to cost the same as the current one, but only be half the square footage, the only plan that seemed to make sense at the time was to use the new studio for important studio things and take on a storage unit for basically everything else that wouldn't fit in there. It's gonna be tight. The storage facility is conveniently right across the street as well, so my thinking at this point was that having to run back and forth across the street all the time would be better than having no space to work at all. It's the gray building with the stripe that's right there. Time was ticking, so Ethan and I got to packing up the studio as soon as we could get a lock for the storage locker. Some of the merch, the mail order supplies, and other less frequently used tools all ended up in here for now. In the next few days, we're gonna have to ram this thing completely full if we're gonna be able to successfully make it from 888 DuPont to 915. Anytime I had 20 minutes free, I'd fill up the car and move another load to the locker.
Kind of have to get a running start.
Okay, it's a few days later now. We're back at the new building to see what progress has been made. Doors. For foreshadowing's sake, I'm going to include this shot of me snooping upstairs at what the studios up there are going to look like. Spoiler alert, Even though I'm about to pour more time, money, and energy into this move than I've put into anything else in my whole life, I'm basically going to be ready to move out again by the end of this video. It's good to see that we're beginning to get walls framed up and electrical run through the building, but now that the walls are in place, it's also immediately obvious to me that this space is absolutely going to be much more of a shoebox than I'd ever imagined. Not to mention that other problems in the construction plans began to present themselves. I sliced my thumb off. There isn't even power on one side of the room at all? It was around now that I realized I was going to have to do something to finish and seal the new concrete floors, but my time's running out. In what may be the worst coincidence for me ever, I also happen to have to be moved out of my apartment by the end of this week too, so my stress is really growing. Lots to go. In the beginning of October, I was finally handed the keys to the new studio space, but honestly, it really wasn't much of a relief at this point. The painting wasn't done, none of the utilities were hooked up, and I had no idea what I was going to do about the floor. Throughout the construction, I noticed the freshly poured concrete floor getting more and more messed up, seeing spilled coffee and paint in the halls become permanent stains in the raw, porous concrete because they hadn't sealed it. Since, at bare minimum, I spill coffee all the time, I knew I wouldn't want to live with that on my floors forever. I dropped by again later on that night and was glad to see they'd gotten a coat of primer up on the walls. As soon as the painting was finished and dry, this internet tech showed up and linked us into the Matrix. He almost left without running the cable because Canadian OSHA doesn't want him on a ladder without a second technician or something, but I threw on the high vis because I wasn't letting him leave before the lights on my modem were blinking. Back at the old studio, things are starting to look a lot different.
Well, we're out of here.
While we pack up the rest of the boxes, let's take a stroll down memory lane. One of the things I'll miss most about this studio was seeing all the car crashes. I'll also miss the row of towels laid along the bottom of every window because they'd leak each and every single time it rained. There was that time our sign got stolen, that time the building literally started to crumble apart, and that time our sign got stolen. I'll miss yelling down to friends on the street, riding mini bikes in the parking lot, our great neighbors, and that other time when our sign got stolen. In the years that I was able to spend here, I met tons of great people, had some great parties, learned a lot, and I got to see some of the best sunsets I've ever seen in the city right here. I miss 888 already. They just don't make them like they used to. If you ever had a studio here over the years or have any other stories from the building, please throw them in the comments. It'd be great to reminisce a little. At this stage, I have 4 or 5 days left before we have to vacate the premises across the street, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And even if I did know what I was doing, you can't put finish on a dirty floor.
All right, what's up, internet? I'm at the new space by myself for the first time. I gotta prep the concrete floors for finishing, which is something I've never done before. First step, I gotta just clean the damn thing.
Now that the drop sheets were pulled up off the floor, I noticed how filthy it truly was. I spent so much time researching different types of floor paints and floor epoxy systems and resin concrete coatings. If you can put it on a concrete floor, I looked it up. Things were looking universally bad for me because I simply don't have the money that a lot of these things cost. But even if I did, most of them were going to take longer to install and cure than I had time left available before my move-in day. I'm so glad this thing ended up being a floor drain and not some old remnant of the old building construction. That allowed me to just flood the place out and scrub all the dirty water right out of there. After a day and a half of scrubbing, the floor is still a bit wet, but is already looking 100 times better. The only marks left are from repairs in the concrete. I know there's been wood shops in this building for many years, and at one point it may or may not have housed a sign painting shop, but other than that, I don't know much about the history of 915 DuPont. I'd love to read some comments if anybody knows anything else about it.
All right, internet. Day something here of working on the floor. Ethan and I spent pretty much the whole day yesterday scrubbing the floor clean. Just honestly a good soak down. It was just full of drywall dust and concrete dust. Got all the cracks cleared out, got all the surface dust off. It's time for the clear coat. I've never clear coated a floor before, but I don't have the $6,000 that a professional quoted. This seems way easier. How hard could it be? I've watched a lot of YouTubes.
The bucket of floor sealer I decided on miraculously arrived ahead of schedule, so I didn't waste any time jumping into it. I ended up going with CDP Sealer's SF Smooth Floor with their extra SRP coating laid on top to help protect against staining and repel oil-based spills like paints and, well, oil. I saw videos they had of someone hitting one of their floors with a sledgehammer and an angle grinder and then spraying it with brake clean and doing a big burnout. After that, it still left the floor unscathed, so that pretty much sold me. They're an independent company in the USA who've been making all types of concrete sealers since 1999. From what I can tell, when I'm done with this floor, it should be more durable for longer than it would be with any other finish I could get from a big box store and cost me less to install. The process was easy. Got the small bottle of SRP out of the way because that's part 2, and added water to the 5-gallon bucket of the SF solution. Once that's mixed, I put it in a garden sprayer and started laying it into the concrete. Unfortunately for you, the process is extremely boring to watch, but it was really easy to do. I just had to spray it on and brush it in with a broom, then repeat. Once the room was finished, I'd let it soak in and I'd lay down another coat. The only solution I could find that would be cheaper than this is that awful gray floor paint that we all know will peel up in a year or less. I can't bring myself to wreck a nice concrete slab with that stuff, and I'm honestly not sure it would even be dry by move-in day if I had decided to paint with it. This video isn't sponsored by CDP Sealer, but I do want to thank Chad again for his help with this studio project. He went out of his way to mix up a fresh, brand new batch of chemicals for us and overnight couriered it all the way to Canada so that I could at least attempt to have everything done in time. Now, I'm no concrete geologist, but from my understanding, the goal here was to slowly saturate deep into the concrete with the SF sealer. The pores inside the concrete all fill up totally with the sealer, and then the entirety of the floor cures and dries from the inside outward. This, in theory, creates a better barrier and protection than, say, a paint or epoxy coat that simply dries and sits on the top of the concrete surface. All right, that was 3 or 4 coats, a lot of sweat. Floor is coated. Just gotta wait 12 hours or 18 hours or 24 hours and then do the chemical seal that protects against oil and solvent. At this point, we've brushed in the full 5 gallons of smooth floor sealer, and although it still looks a little wet, technically this floor is finished. If you don't use oil paints and heavy-duty solvents or gasoline in your space, that's all you have to do to seal your floor. I do use all those caustic things though, so it's time for a little nap before I add on the extra SRP protection coat. Why I sound unsure of the amount of time the floor needs to dry isn't because of the CDP instructions. It's because there's only about 48 hours left before we have to move in, and I'm honestly not sure if we're gonna make it on time.
All right, internet, I'm back. It's very early in the morning. The first seal coat is dry, looks good. Chemical resistant coat now, before anyone gets here. Should be easy, same thing as last time. Spray it down, broom it in, not rocket science.
You may not be able to tell from my level of enthusiasm, but this is actually the start of our move-in day. Taking the floor's dry time and our lease expiry countdown into account, I had to wake up at about 3 a.m. so that I could get the last coat sprayed down as early as possible.
Okay, mission accomplished. It still just looks like a damp concrete floor, so I'm very tired. I'm sure this will look amazing later. I am happy I did it, I'm just very tired.
I did read the word hydrophobic on the website somewhere, but I'm not going to say anything more about that because I know all you scientists in the comments will fill in the blanks. All that was left to do now was cross all my fingers and hope that it would be dry by the time we returned with a moving truck in a few hours. Okay, it's move-in day. The floor is done. We did the first smooth floor coat. I left it to dry for 18 hours. Then I came in super early and did the stain resistant coat. So in theory this is a floor now. All in all, both the CDP clear coat and the chemical resistant coat cost about $230 USD plus shipping, which is a far cry from the $4,000 to $6,000 I was being quoted by flooring companies locally. Oh yeah! Well, this has got to be the most underwhelming after shot of all time, so I apologize for that.
We're tired.
In person, it's visibly way nicer than the concrete in the rest of the building, and the finish is surprisingly way smoother to the touch than I ever expected. Yesterday, it still just looked like a shitty damp floor, and it probably still just looks like a damp floor because the lighting in here is so terrible. But we can step on it. After loading up the truck across the street, we had one last thing to take care of at 888. After years of hearing how this sign cheered people up on their commutes, it was sad to see it have to come down.
Well, I'm out of here. 3 years. What a weird time. Empty. We moved in! Yes, 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 yes. There's so many boxes.
I took a day or two to try to get some sleep and figure out which boxes of what had ended up where and take stock of the whole situation that I've roped myself into. The furnace was still never connected, so it took a bit of extra time for the concrete to fully dry up all the way to its core, but now it's lightened up a lot and the finish looks even more smooth and consistent throughout. It may not look like it because the raw concrete work on the slab itself isn't the best, but the new clear coat is smooth as silk. I'll link CDP below if you're interested in sealing your own floor or concrete slab. Before I can even get into the new studio to-do list, we had to put up a new sign. You know, anything to put off unpacking boxes.
Okay, it's a day or two after move-in day. I've slept, sort of. Step one for me is get rid of all this awful green tape.
Move-in day was so hectic that we didn't even have time to pull the masking tape. We just had to dive straight into unloading the moving truck. Since dozens of other displaced artists and designers were all trying to move out of the building at the same time, it became the most chaotic loading dock I have ever seen. Clip from the future here. This floor was coated in October of 2021, and it's taken me until March of 2024 to edit this video. Fast forward the 2.5 years, and I'm really happy to see that the seal coat is holding up great. The person currently in the space is a floral designer. She says it sweeps up easy and still mops up perfectly clean. Thanks for letting me pop by unexpectedly to see how it's looking. Next on the list was to clear some space and try to get at least one usable table set up as a desk. We also got our apparel shelves mounted to the wall with heavy-duty flip toggle anchors. Alright, we made it to the new studio. We got some shelves up. Most things are still a pile, but we're in. Things are good. Sort of. As if moving studio spaces wasn't enough, We decided to do a holiday merch drop and a web store sale during this week too. It was honestly such a stupid oversight on my part, but we're way beyond the point of no return here. No Fun Studio is a two-person team, just Ethan and I. Somehow we managed to never close the shop, get all of your orders delivered on time, and juggle the rest of this building and moving. I still have no clue how we managed to pull it all off at the same time. I want to take a second to thank everybody who put in an order while all this was happening. I really don't know what I would be doing right now without all your support. If you're watching this video not long after it comes out, we've got another apparel sale on right now too. No codes required. Just go get yourself some nice No Fun gear. For the next few weeks, we try to settle into this space the best we can, but it becomes immediately obvious that creating a productive atmosphere in this building is going to be a steeper uphill battle than I ever anticipated. The graffiti in the alley here says, "Welcome to hell," and boy do I feel like I'm living it. All of the filming that we're doing at the new studio came to a near complete stop because of the continued and increasingly stupid disputes with not only our landlord and their construction crew, but also surprisingly with our new neighbors. The furnace never did get turned on, even after the cold weather hit. There were mice, there were break-ins at the building, and things like this continued to happen with no warning. With all these little issues piling up on top of one another, it really is feeling like death by 1,000 cuts. We haven't been able to get much done in here. With all that in mind, I terminated my lease on this studio, this time on my own terms. I'm really committed to trying to produce the best in-studio content that I can for this channel. I really want to share what I'm doing around here because I hope that I'm making things that y'all will like. It's my goal to continue to create quality videos for you, and I know that's going to be impossible if I stay committed to this tiny, noisy space. We haven't been here for a long time or a good time. That means No Fun Studio is moving, yet again. If this was a video about trying to make it work, I definitely did do that. Even if things don't feel like a success to me right now, I'm definitely going to keep trying. The new studio space is bigger and better than ever, and none of the footage we shoot in there will ever have a neighbor's classic rock radio station blaring in the background, and that's a beautiful thing. That means we'll be back to the rug making content in no time, which I'm really excited about. It also means that I guess we'll be continuing the studio build series even longer, which I hope you're really excited about. I'm editing one last project video in this space, and then we've got a tufting gun review video that I'm pumped about coming up. And after that, we'll be right back into the studio saga. I've got so much work ahead of me. Keep your eye out for the next episode. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. I really could use your support now more than ever. See you in the next video. We're out of the noisy studio. I'm gonna miss this floor, but I'm not gonna miss anything else about this place. Let's get out of here.
I'm tired.